Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's raining outside. I was hoping to plant some more of my bulbs, but that's not happening. So I thought that's the ideal opportunity to come and create a journal page. I am also clearing and decluttering the garage, but I'm having a break from that. But I haven't cleaned up again, so I'm just going to use what I had. So let's have a look. So if we go to the page we did yesterday, which I've no idea where it is now. There it is. There's the page that we did yesterday, and I'm going to do a page opposite with the same products, probably the poppy, and we'll create a different page just on the opposite page. And then they coordinate with each other. It doesn't have to coordinate, but I do like it when it does coordinate. I'm going to take my little 3x5 gel press. I love the size, it's just the perfect size. And I think I'm going to get some 4-inch circle ones in as well, because they're just a nice lovely size for the pages, the books, and the 4x6 card that I tend to use. So I'm trying to put this so you can actually see where I'm going. And this, as you can see, it's just a nice size there on the page from the Pink Pig journal. I'm going to use the same colours I used yesterday, which was the Twisted Citron, Evergreen Bow, peeled Pine Needles and Rustic Wilderness. Which is one of the new sets of colours of the little mini distress oxides. So I'm going to take those and I'm going to add the colour just onto my little gel press. So I'm starting with the, what are you starting with? Twisted Citron. So I'm pressing the Twisted Citron onto my gel press. I'm then going to go with Evergreen Bow. I'm going to add that colour onto here. I'm then going to use Rustic Wilderness, which is just a lovely colour. So I'm going to take the Rustic Wilderness and the Pine Needles. So let's take the Pine Needles. And then I'm just going to go back with the colours again, going back up with the colours. And then let's bring a little bit more Twisted Citron. I'm then going to take some water and I'm going to grab my fan brush. So let's grab the fan brush. And with the fan brush, just because it's a little light, the brush has not got any heavy bristles or anything, I can just then add some delicate splatters to my project. So I can just add some of them delicate splatters, a few more. Obviously you can add your water to a jar, making it a lot easier for you, whichever you prefer. There we go. Just grab a little piece of kitchen towel, just because that will keep that. There we go. And you could add your gel press, your little gel press, to an acrylic block if that makes it a little bit easier for you to handle. I'm then going to add this to my page, and I love how it suddenly comes to life, and you can just press that a little bit or you can press it quite a lot. It's entirely up to you, but you can press as much as you want, look, or you can press as little as you want. But I quite like the sort of ombre effect we've got with those colours. And the colours are already done for us because that was literally in the set. So you could do this with all your sets of mini distress oxides if you wished. But now I've got a perfect combination of colours there, which works rather nicely. And you can see that I'm just giving that a little bit of time just to absorb onto my page. I've got a good quality page on here in the Pink Pig journal, and it takes the moisture really nicely. And I'm not lifting it up too soon because I don't want it to just all go into the centre down here on the page. And if I lift it too soon, you get like a little rim that comes down in the centre here. And I don't want that, so I'm just giving it a little bit of time. You can see that I can still press. It's still moving. So I'm just going to give that a little bit longer. Now, I won't sing to you because my singing is definitely not up to scratch, not something that you would want to listen to anyway. So we just need to be a little bit patient and give that a little bit of time to do its work. So let's just, and I'm going to lift this up from this way, and I'll explain why, because then if any runs, which it will, that it runs down. So I love that. We may get a second generation print, but I don't want to do anything with that at the moment. But look at that. Just look at that. Absolutely. You know, the way the colours have been put together is just wonderful. So, move that out of the way. So I can now take a little bit more water. And you can add a little bit more water now to your project. And that will continue to oxidize. So just giving that a little bit more of that colour. Now, if you want it to sort of bleed at the edges, you can either do it nice and softly like I'm doing here, just so that it bleeds, or you can spritz. Now, you see me on occasions where I spritz the card and the edges all bleed. You can also do it this way as well, adding some moisture just around the outer edges, just so that it bleeds out a little bit, just so that it's not too overpowering. I just think that is gorgeous. Now, if I go and add this kitchen roll to that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to dab all that colour off. And I really don't want to, on this occasion, remove the water and therefore remove the colour. I want to leave that blend and that sort of marbling effect. It's truly beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So again, it's entirely up to you whether you spritz it. If you spritz it, it bleeds a lot quicker. But doing it this way, I'm just being a little bit more mindful. I'm not sort of doing it so that it wicks out too quickly. It's just a few areas, softening the edge. So I'm just going round and softening that edge. So I've done nothing that's complicated, absolutely nothing. Just tapped it with water and tapped the edges with water as well. And by being a little bit more patient, not lifting the page, what's happening now is where I've got the moisture, this ink will then wick out into the moisture that I've added. And what that does is it creates a softer effect and we look a little bit more artistic. I'm going to plug my heat tool in. Now there's lots of moisture on there. I'm loving how it's marbling here. Now because there's lots of moisture on there, if I put my heat tool on, I'm going to move that everywhere. So just be mindful of that. And if you don't want to move it everywhere, just hold your heat tool a little bit higher up from the surface of the card, just so that you can dry that. Now you'll see, because I'm drying it, I'm not dabbing it with the kitchen towel. So because I'm not dabbing it with the kitchen towel, I'm not getting the bleached out effect, because that's not what I'm looking for on this occasion. Now you can you see this line here where it's a little bit darker? I'm trying to make sure that the heat tool doesn't move that, and it just dries it where it is. That's it. So it's actually drying it where it is. So I have these darker areas as well. And I'm going to lift this up. Now, if I'd have dabbed this with the kitchen towel, I'd have had those bleached out areas. But on this occasion, that's not what I was looking for. I was looking for that lovely, rich, deep combination of colour. And when it's raining outside, I can't think of anything better than creating a journal page, or creating anything, to be honest. Now it's just taking a little bit longer to dry this because I've added so much moisture. And now that I've dried it, that will no longer continue to move. If you'd have left the moisture on there, it would continue to move out. But can you see how gentle it is around those edges? But look at that beautiful combination of colour. So what I'm going to do now, I love creating my own backgrounds. It's just, I find that part of the fun of creating. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take Twisted Citron, and I'm going to sort of double up on the background now. So I'm going to take the Twisted Citron, but instead of spritzing water, I'm going to spritz the Twisted Citron. So let's just spritz. No, we're not spritzing. This is called splattering, Tracy. You knew what I meant anyway, didn't you? But you can see now I'm just splattering the Twisted Citron onto my page. Just to give that another effect. You could also dab the rest of that colour that was on here onto another piece of card. And then I'm going to add some water again. So there's still some green in this, as you can see. So I'm continuing to create with my background. So let's just give this a clean. Look at the pigment in that. Absolutely brilliant. Just wonderful. Let's give that a little bit more of a clean. I'm trying to be very good with my brushes. Trust me, I'm not most of the time. And I just think that's lovely. It could quite easily be a paper, but you've created it yourself, which that sense of satisfaction by creating it yourself. So let's just give this a dry. Just wonderful. I'm then going to grab, which one am I going to grab, which stencil? Where's the 6x6 ones? Do you know, whenever I want the 6x6 stencils, I've never got them in the place that I think I've got them. It's always in a different place. Let me just see. There it is. So I want to use my grunge stencil. So I want to use the grunge stencil. And I'm just going to add some little bits and pieces onto here. So I'm going to take my blending brush. So I want my greens. Where's the greens? Trying to keep all my blending brushes colour coordinated so that I can go straight to them. I'm then going to use the Twisted Citron. So let's take a little bit of the Twisted Citron. And I'm using my smaller blending brushes. So I'm being mindful. Let me just to keep the colour within the confines of the area that we've created. So I'm just sort of being mindful of that, just so that we keep that within there. Now with the oxides, it's lovely because you can layer your colour on top of each other. And you can hold your stencil in place and then just lift it, see if you're getting any desired effect. So don't forget, you're just creating a background. I'm going to lift this up so that you can see. I'm going to lift this up. Can you see the bits of background in there from the stenciling? And I'm then going to take the stencil again, and then I'm just going to pick a few areas out. So we're going to use the pine needles. So let's use pine needles. And then I'm just going to pick a few areas out on that stencil. So for instance, let's just pick them little bits there. And we'll just add a little bit of pine needles here. So a little bit of pine needles there. We'll then pick, and obviously in some areas it's going to be tone on tone because you're going on the same dark areas. So that's what you want. You want some sort of areas to be tone on tone. So I'm going to take the pine needles now. There we go. Just so that we've got some tone on tone into our background. Also then grab another piece of your 4x6. Let's just move this out of the way. Just spritz your card. So this is just a 4x6 inch piece. And then you can just add whatever ink's left on there. You could add to another background, just so that you've got the start of a background maybe, that you can add another project to, which will be really lovely. There we go. And it just gives me the start of a background. And sometimes they are the best, just having a bit of a background. Again, there's still ink on there that you could get another print from. Let's move that out of the way. And then I'm just going to literally just spritz this now so that I get a little bit more movement, and then I'm going to give that a dry. And by spritzing it with water, it just means that not only does it oxidise, it just means that that thick, rich pigment isn't just sitting there. There we go. And it doesn't matter that my page is bending because it's in the book. So once I close the page, that will be absolutely fine. I'm then going to take the poppy stamp, and I'm going to take some copier paper. So I can take my copier paper now and just place that down the edge, just there, just so it's down the edge. So let's take the poppy stamp, and I want the largest of the poppies. Let's just take the largest of the poppy, and again, just being careful not to overstretch that. I'm going to take a larger acrylic block, and then I want my black ink pad. So I'm going to take my black ink pad. So I'm using Nocturne ink. And I'm just going to use the flower head this time, rather than necessarily using the stem. And then I'm going to add the floral just to my background. And just because you've got this long stem and leaf doesn't mean you have to use that long stem and leaf. You can just use the flower head as well, just so that it gives you a different feel to your project. And can you see, because I've used that Nocturne, I'm using that black, and I've got all those layers of oxide ink on there, you need to be mindful that you've got all those layers of the oxide on there, and therefore give this a little bit longer, just to, you know, give that impression on the card. Just stunning. I'm then going to take the Nocturne again. So let's take that Nocturne once again. Trying to just turn this, keep it in camera, and so that you can see everything as well. Sometimes that's a little difficult. There we go. So now let's have this way. And I'm trying to do it so that you don't have to mask off any areas and you still get a good, you know, impression. And you still get a good project. So now, the only thing you need to remember is I often see a lot of posts saying you can't stamp Nocturne onto oxides. Yes, you can. It's just that 1, you need to take your time. 2, you need to dry the ink and blot it because it will just sit on the surface because they're designed for an absorbent surface. So you just need to be mindful of those 2 things. That's all. Most of the time it's because we're in a rush. Yes, it can affect your Nocturne a little bit, but look at that with those colours. I mean, just stunning. Absolutely stunning. So let's rip this paper in half. So then I've got 2 pieces. It's not exactly in half, Tracy, but you know what I mean. So let's place a little bit there and let's place a little bit here. There we go. Let's take our ink again and we'll take that Nocturne. Wonderful. And now we can take just taking a little bit of time. Do I want it? No, let's have it so it's just part of it. I do talk to my work as well. It's just me all over. So just give this a little bit of time. And you can see, even though I'm just stamping part of that, and even though I'm doing a video, I still don't lift that up too soon. I just give that time. Yes, we still make mistakes, but it just gives less, you get less frustration if you just follow some simple guidelines. I mean, those colours, I mean, they're going to be a firm favourite. Look at them colours on there. Just divine. Absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning. So what am I going to do then? I'm going to grab, I want to stencil. You can tell I'm having a play. I love having a play. So I'm going to take my snippet stencil, excuse me, post frame 23. And of course, you can guarantee it's probably at the back or it's not where it's supposed to be. No, of course, it's not where it's supposed to be. Pull them all out, Tracy. See, the problem is when I'm looking, I'm like, oh, I might use the beard. Let's have a look at this. No, I'm going to use that. Do you like how it takes me ages to make my mind up? But you could do this with so many of your stencils. But you could tell I was not really deciding what I wanted to do, couldn't you? Okay, so I'm then going to take a black pen. So just a micron pen or anything like that. And I'm going to just sort of, no, not sort of, I'm literally going to draw around my stencil. But when I get to the flowers, I'm making sure that, let me just see where that, is that the floral? Yeah. I'm making sure that it doesn't go through the flowers, if that makes sense. It'll make sense when you see it. And I can bet you, I'll guarantee you, I've probably missed somewhere. Like I'm trying to be professional and not miss somewhere. Yes, that's perfect. So let's lift this up. So if I hold that up, you can see that I have the postage stamp around the florals, not going through them, just around them. You can see it finishes there and here. It doesn't go through the floral, which is what you want, really. You don't want it to go through the floral. So you just want to be mindful of that. So then I'm going to take a little bit or a lot. Shall we have a finer brush, do you think? Yeah, let's have a finer brush. We'll have our kitchen roll, and I've done nothing complicated. So I'm going to take my brush. Now, don't put your hand in it like I've just done. There are certain things that you need. One, you need a good cardstock. Two, it needs to be a good thick card. Three, you need a good layer of ink, so you get some kind of contrast. And when your water gets too dirty, you do need to clean that water. You're using a permanent ink that you've stamped with, so that's not going to move. So that's wonderful. That won't move at all. But as your water gets really dirty, you just want to make sure that you give that a clean, because the only thing you will do is put that dirty water back onto your project. So I'm grabbing a piece of clean kitchen roll, and I'm just going to dab that dry. There we go. So you can see we have removed some colour. Now, it's not going to go pure white because it's not white card underneath, but you're going to get sort of a slight change in colour. And you want to give that a little bit of time so that reacts, so that it reacts with the water. And then we can just dab that, and you can see that you're removing some of that colour, just so that you get a little bit of contrast. There we go. And I have to say, the florals on this page stamped in the black works really well, especially with that lovely dark rich backdrop. Can you also see how tinted the water is? Because I'm removing that colour. So the water that I'm using becomes quite tinted. And I'm trying to make sure that you can see some of that contrast on there. Don't worry, this is your background. So you're just using this as your background. So I'm going to come on and I'm going to add a little bit more water. And I'm going to let that stay on there a little bit longer. Clean water again. So once my water gets a little bit too tinted, I then give myself some clean water. So I'm just going to let that just react a little bit. And then we can just dab that dry. Just, can you see how much colour you've removed? So let's give this a dry now. You can also dry from the back as well. There's nothing on the back, it's not gone through. That's not showing you, is it? It's not gone through, so it's perfect. But you can just dry it from the back, just to make sure that that's fully dry. You want to make sure it's dry because you really don't want to sort of break down the card when you do any other work to it. Okay, so that's nice and dry now and nice and hot as well. But you can see what we have now. So I've taken colour out of there, and then I'm just going to add my white Prisma, or whatever white pencil you happen to have. So it's entirely up to you, whatever white pencil that you've got. I'm just coming in with my white pencil, just to add. It's very therapeutic, you know, doing this. It's just lovely. So coming in. So this is just a Prisma white. It could be a polychroma white. You could use white pan pastels and just add the pan pastels. Again, that is entirely up to you. But I'm not pressing too hard. But you can see I've just, where I've added the postage stamp, just on part of those florals. But you've got choices to make. Once you've added sort of white like this, you can either add more white or you can add a touch of a contrasting colour like red if you wish. So it's entirely up to you. So if you want it to have a little bit more oomph, you can add a little bit of another colour. So I'm just going to add another layer of white. And you can see what I'm doing is I'm adding another layer of white, Then I shall decide whether I want to add the red that's going to add a little bit of contrast to the design. And I do think I'm going to add some red. So let's take a red Prismy pencil. Now I want a sort of a nice sort of poppy red. Oh, perfect. Poppy red. Let's have some darker colours. So we want sort of, yeah, Crimson Lake. And what colour are you? You can tell I like this colour. Crimson red, because look how small it is. Isn't it funny? Certain pencils you just love. So I'm going to come in with my darkest colour, Crimson Lake 925. I'm going to come in with that. Crimson Lake 925. If you didn't want to use pencils, you could also come in and you could use paint. It's entirely up to you. Now, if you're sitting there and thinking, well, why have you added the white? The white is just so that it gives me a base, and it makes the colours pop a little bit more. Having that white base rather than, you know, the bluey tinged greeny base. Just coming in just with a little bit of the red. So this is my darkest colour. Then we'll come to our mid colour, which is the Crimson Red. What was this one? Oh, was it Crimson Lake? Yeah, this is Crimson Red. It'd be nice if they didn't call them similar colours, because it doesn't take much to confuse me. So come in to your previous colour and just blend into that previous colour. And I'm just being mindful, as always, as in my previous card, just to not press too hard, just to press lightly. So my first layer, it's sort of, it's scribbled on really, just using a circular motion just to add the detail to that, just in a circular motion. And then the lovely bright red is the poppy red, which is 922. So it's a nice poppy red, that is. And with that, I'm going to come into the previous colours with that poppy red. So just coming into them, just to blend the previous colours. And at the moment, the centre of the flower, it doesn't pop, it needs some work. There we go. And then my last touch is sort of blend out that poppy red with a little bit of the white, just to blend that out with the white. Again, that's not enough layers to smooth that out and give it the vibrancy that it needs. Oh, I didn't even do that one. Poor thing. So just coming in with that poppy red. Again, just trying to be mindful that you can actually see what I am doing. And the red is a lovely contrast against those turquoise and greens. It's lovely. So I'm just coming in a little bit more of the white. That's it. So nothing's, you know, blended too much. So I'm going to come in with my darkest colour again, which was that Crimson Lake. So we just come in with our darker colour, still using that circular motion, just with the Crimson Lake, just to give a little bit more depth to our design. And just come in again right to this edge here. You can also sort of go round your petals like we did in the previous video, where the petals overlap. You can come in and make that a little bit darker. There we go. So as you add the layers, you fill in the white areas or the colours underneath, and it becomes smoother and it looks lovely then. Then we'll go to our Crimson Red. And with your Crimson Red, you're going to go into your previous colour. So go into that previous colour. Again with that circular motion. And just blend into the previous colour, just so you get a nice rich feel to that poppy. And I will come in with another colour just to define maybe the lines a little bit more. Just a little bit. It's difficult trying to keep it at an angle, just so that you can see what I'm doing. So this second colour goes into that darkest colour, just to blend the lines. Then you take your lightest colour, which is the poppy red, and go into the other two colours with your poppy red. So go into those other two colours with your poppy red. I can just lose myself with a little bit of colouring. I do find it relaxing. So just use that circular motion going into the previous layers. And then finally, I'm using that white to blend the edges of that together. And it drags a little bit of that poppy red out, just so the transition's a little bit smoother. So let's just so it does make that transition a little bit smoother. So just take your time just to add the white. And because you've got that dark background, it really comes to life when you add the touches of white. Brings that to life. And it just, you know, it really works with that dark background. And then I want to just sharpen my pencil, my white one, a little bit. If I've got a sharp pencil, it just makes it a little bit easier to get into areas. I do want to add a little bit more darkness, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually find like a purple just to give me some shadow. And I want it to be dark, not light. This looks like the one. Black cherry. Now it's a purple, so I can just come in, not pressing too hard, and just add a little bit of that purple, just to give me a little bit more of definition. Purples and blues are very good for, you know, your shadows and things like that. So I'm just taking the purple and just adding little touches of that purple. Now, if I'd have pressed too hard, it really wouldn't let me do this, because I'd have added too much pigment too soon, and so I couldn't add any more. But because I was quite considered and didn't press too hard, it just means that I can add a little bit more darkness to that. I'm going to take my white pencil and I'm just going to add just a few touches of white. These are very subtle, but they are there with the white, because I will add some other touches of white as well. Now we've got the postage stamp, and I want that to stand out a little bit more. So I'm going to come in with my white pencil, and I'm going to use the white pencil and come around that. Again, you can use your pan pastels, your pastel pencils, but I'm coming around with the white very gently, just so that I can just make it so that that stands out a little bit more. So I'm just making it so that the postage stamp is going to pop a little bit more. But it's like anything, when you're doing this kind of thing, it's more about light layers than pressing super hard. You don't want to press super hard before you even get anywhere. Can you see? So you just want to be You know, you're creating a journal page and you're relaxing creating that. You're not doing anything complicated, but it is about taking your time. I'm just coming in and I'm just going to add another layer of the white. Now there's another way you can do this. If you haven't got a pencil, place your stencil back over your cut out piece, which is, what have you done with the stencils? Why did I ask myself that? I've put it back. So you take this cut out piece, add that on the top, and then sponge with white. Obviously you'd have to mask your flowers off, but I'm just trying to show you ways as well. You don't have to mask your flowers off. But the advantage of white paint is if it's opaque, once you add that opaque white, you know, it's going to pop against that background. Can you see? So you can do your white pencil and just build up the layers and just enjoy your pencils. And just adding the layers. If you're not a pencil person, then you can just use your paint and it will happen very quickly. But I like to make sure that everybody can be included within every project I'm doing. So I'm going to show you the difference. So this is your pencil work. And then if we take the stencil, let's take the stencil. You can place that over the top, like so. If you want to do it another way, so I'm going to take one of my blending brushes. Let me grab myself a little blending brush. So I'm just grabbing myself a blending brush, and I don't want anything too big. So I'm going to use one of my fine ones. And then I'm just going to take some white paint. And just so that I don't have to have a big paint, I'm just going to use my Winsor & Newton gouache. And I'm going to move these all out of the way so you can actually see what I'm doing. I'm going to add a tiny bit of water. And then I'm going to pick up the white paint. I can easily wash my brushes, that's easy. And I'm then going to got the white paint here, and then I can come in and add the white paint, and I'm going to show you the difference. And I added a little bit of water, mainly because my paint is quite thick. So let's place this here. I think you can probably already see what I'm going to say. It's an opaque paint. It's richer, it's thicker. Let's just, actually there should be a little bit there, shouldn't there? Let's lift this up, because you don't have to worry about lifting it, because you can easily put it back in place, she says. But now can you see what I mean? It pops, doesn't it? It absolutely pops. If you don't like holding your stencil in place, you can simply do it with a paintbrush. The difference is, using a blending brush, you're applying that paint a little bit thicker. So let's place this back here. And now let's move them out the way. I can just bring a little bit more. My brush is not very wet, but I can just bring a little bit more. There we go. And doesn't that pop? It just pops beautifully. And then I can just wash those in a little bit of soapy water. But doesn't that pop really nicely? Just pops beautifully. And you can see then that postage stamp. Let's make sure there's no paint on my little scissors. But it just works really lovely. And then we obviously want to add some touches of white to our poppies. So I'm going to add some touches of white with my Posca pen. Again, if you didn't like to use paint, use your pens or pencils to go around there. And you can just add very sort of gentle little wisps of white. I've made sure that my white Posca pen, the paint is flowing, just to make it a little bit easier. I just want little touches of white on there, and we're just going to come in and we're just going to add a little bit of white to the edges. And you know by now that I'm slightly obsessed with adding white. It's just a little bit of an obsession, and I do prefer to do like a little squiggly line-ish. And then you can just give that a dry, just so that that doesn't react too much. And I need to add, I need to add layers of this Posca pen, because it's going to pick up the colour underneath, which of course is your oxide. So you don't want that to react too much. So let's just add a few more. And just dry that so it doesn't react too much. Can you see how many layers I've added of that Posca pen? Just so that it doesn't take on the undercolour. But it just looks so lovely. I really love that. Makes me happy. It really does. And then, so now I'm doing a project that's, I've shown you projects where you can keep it nice and simple. So you could have added simple, just 3 florals. I've taken it up the next level with the postage stamp. And then you can take it up the next level if you want. And you can add something inside. So then we can do double stenciling. So take your TE29, which is our bird. So you can take that number 29 and place the bird so it's a stencil within a stencil. Okay, but you need to not go over this top here. So it's a stencil within a stencil. I'm then going to take, you've got your Nocturne out, Tracy. I just need the brush. I've actually got a brush that I use my black Nocturne ink with. There it is, a brush with my black Nocturne ink. You could use Posca pen if you wanted to, but I want that to be quite black. So I've shown you 3 different ways now that you can make your design going up the next level. So this is double stenciling. Now this is putting the oily ink on the top. And you can see that I add layers of that because you've got that oxide ink underneath there. Move that out of the way. Let's just give that stencil a quick wipe, just so it doesn't dry on there too much. Honestly, I've got products everywhere. Let's bring this in, give that a wipe. So you've now got your bird within your postage stamp looking at those florals. So it just takes it up the next level. Now let's be mindful and just place these back, because then I'm not searching for them forever. Place them back. Let's take, no. So I've got that lovely bird on there now. And look at that, just wonderful. And I'm then going to take a little bit of text. And I want the text to be white, so I'm using Opaque Bright White by Wow. Now I'm going to add a little bit of text, and we know this is wet now. So let's give this a dry. We know that that VersaFine Clair is just going to be sitting on the top of there. So you just need to give that a dry. Then we'll use our anti-static bag, and we'll just dab the anti-static bag just so that that helps a little bit and the embossing doesn't stick everywhere. I'm then going to take my Versamark. Going to take the Versamark ink, and then we're going to go back to the poppy stamp. Let's take this off, and then on the poppy stamp is our lovely text. So we take our lovely text that's perfect, that's from the poppy stamp. So we'll just take the text, blah, blah, and Versamark ink. And I'm going to add some touches of white embossing. But I'm not going to add too much, and I'm just going to add a couple of areas at a time, just so that I can make sure I'm happy with that first. So let's just, I've got a little bit of copier paper here. A little bit of awkward because I've got it in my book, obviously. Let's just tip that up. Lovely, that's just stuck exactly where I want that. No added extra bits anywhere else because I've used that anti-static bag. But if the underneath layers were wet, that anti-static bag wouldn't make any difference. You'd still have to brush it off. But you need to make sure that your layers underneath are completely dry. So that's another bit more embossing now. You can see a little bit more awkward with it being in my book. Now that oily ink will stay wetter a little bit longer, so I'm just going to brush over there just to make sure I haven't got anything too much on there. Place this back on our poppy stamp, and then let's give that a heat. And this will just give a little touch of white to the project. And again, something that will pop against our background. So that white is just a touch and it just pops against the background. Let's put that light on. Then you can see that a little bit better. It just pops against there really nicely. Let's add, no, because I'm going to add a little bit of a card anyway for the poppy wording. This could quite easily be a card. But it also shows that you don't have to fill the whole page. It doesn't all have to be completely covered in any shape or form. You can just have it, you know, however you want. And don't forget, you've still got some ink on your gel press that you could use. So I'm going to take a little bit of water now. What did I use that for? Take a little bit of water, and I'm just going to come in around the edges just to soften. That's softened beautifully there. Obviously I've dried it several times, but just so that that's just a little bit more, a little softer. And then I'll take the poppy wording again, like we've done on the previous page. And then when you look at the pages together, you can see the difference. So I'm going to grab a little piece of white card. Yes, chance will be a fine thing. And then I'm going to use the Nocturne ink. Obviously, if you want to keep this for a background, then you don't want to be stamping on it like I'm doing. In fact, let's not do that. Seems a shame to not use it. You see, I've got that many pieces that are background pieces. Can I find a piece of card that hasn't got a background on? Can I, Eck? Oh, I know. There we go. Try again. So I'll just ink that with my Nocturne ink. Just stamp this poppy word, and this time I'm cutting out that word. There we go. Again, making it so that the actual word that I'm cutting out isn't too thick and bulky. And you can look through your camera if you wish to see where you want to add your word. It's entirely up to you where you want to add it. And I want to add it inside that sort of postage stamp, because I don't want to just dot it outside the project, because for me it's a little less cohesive then. Brilliant, that bottle is absolutely brilliant, lifesaver. So just add copy there. Just clean the end like so, so that you're not got anything stuck in there, and just use my finger as a guide. And then that is my page finished. And it's a little bit different than the previous page, just so you can see that. But it proves you can change it up with the same colour schemes and ink pads. So I hope you've enjoyed that journal page and you'll give that a go. Love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.